Welcome back from the SWAT. We're on to critical issues. Now, critical issues, I'm going to read from Master of You. This was a hard section to write, so I want to capitalize on all the editing and the 25th writing of this chapter. So critical issues are, here you are, and here's your target. And now you know your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in relationship between you and this target. And now the real question is like, what could keep you from doing that? And what are you absolutely going to need to achieve that? So without further ado, illuminating your critical issues. As Brian Moran, author of The 12-Week Year, reminds us, a vision without a plan is a pipe dream. The fire of the mind is required to blaze a path forward. When you consider your SWOT in light of an ambitious vision, issues might arise to the surface. I'd actually say issues always will arise. That's the whole thing with a growth path, is that it is through overcoming challenges or issues that you actually evolve who you are as a human being and evolve your identity. Critical issues is a term used by business strategists to identify what needs to be tackled in order to make a smart action plan. Yogis might call them critical karmas to highlight the path between cause and effect. Critical issues surface mostly because of competing interests, limited resources, unknowns about opportunities, and threats bigger than they appear. Critical issues surface from answering the question, what could go wrong? What obstacles must I overcome? Discrimination is the mind's digestion, which determines whether or not a course of action is appropriate for the well-being of the organism, states Ayurvedic doctor Robert Svoboda. Discrimination, or discernment, Svoboda points out, is the mental equivalent of fire. Discrimination, or discernment, Svoboda points out, is the mental equivalent of fire in Ayurveda, which is required to find the best course of action out of many, if not infinite, possibilities, end quote. This friction of focused thinking generates the glow of insight. A strategy generated from disciplined thinking allows aligned actions to fall into place. Strategy is formed from thorough processing of the critical issues. These processes of structured thinking focus attention like a laser on a deliberate future. Profound insights and spiritual breakthroughs are part of solid strategic planning. Critical issues require narrowing of the potential problems and opportunities into what must receive attention in order for the vision to be possible. Critical issues chisel the 3-year vision into a question. What are my essential strategies to make this dream happen? How should I get from A to B? Razor-sharp, fiery attention, rather than Pollyannish thinking, is required to find the route through the challenging terrain ahead. I can't emphasize this enough. Like, what I see as such an issue with people who have big dreams but can't make them happen is they don't run their awareness through a rigorous thinking process, and they don't use structured problem solving activities like we do in this course, where they're actually running their thinking through a thinking structure. So critical issues is its own structure. The creation of strategy out of critical issues is its own structure, and those are the next 2 structures that we're going to do. So use these question stems to identify critical issues. How might I blank? How might I achieve this dream? How do I achieve this dream or goal? For example, a family might generate this issue. How might we live abroad for a year? Say that's a 3-year vision, given that we can't cover our home mortgage, weakness or strength, and rent a place abroad, opportunity. The strategy this question suggests is researching solutions such as renting out their home or perhaps trading houses. Strategic issues I've had in the past include, how might I spend more time with my kid? Opportunity tied to a 3-year vision, while writing a book and running a company. Strength. J.P. Morgan says, no problem can be solved until it can be reduced to some simple form. Challenging the vision into the best plan is the strategic quest. Now, this breaking it into the simplest form is really important because it's so easy at this stage to get lost in a lot of complexity. I really find that, like, what keeps you up at night, or what are the biggest things that you're really going to have to overcome, that's just the very most basic, simple form of critical issues. It's no harder than that. Okay, business strategist Tyler Norton says that the best strategies arise from the intersections of certain strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to solve for the most critical issues to move your dream forward. Considering what could hold you back or propel you forward, mix and match the SWOT data. So you're going to take the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and we're going to discover the most potent intersections in light of what you have versus in light of what you're going to need and what is now possible versus what you have already achieved. Examples are key strengths matched with assets to meet challenges. A lesson learned, co-bred with a weakness married to an opportunity to generate a skill or nourish a relationship. Example, a colleague, a new hire, or a mentor. Hitching a weakness to an advantage, a resource, or an opportunity transforms the problem of your weakness into a strategy worth investigating. The best way to figure out the strategies to resolve your critical issues is with this exercise that we will do next. You can prevent headaches and wasted resources such as time and money later by generating your best strategies now. Now is not the time to aim for a B-. Now is the time to sharpen your thinking axe, and fire up the laser of your mind into a peak state. I find that a good night's sleep, early morning cold shower, contemporary piano playlist, and a double shot of cappuccino helps a lot. As you lean into your critical issues, turn into the present. Now is the best time to sharpen your thinking axe and fire up the laser of your mind into a peak state. I find a good night's sleep, early morning cold shower, contemporary piano playlist, and a double shot cappuccino helps. As you lean into your critical issues, tune your presence of mind to notice a flash of insight. Trust the process. Let it evolve the way you think to build dynamic strategies that plow the path forward. All right, so we're going to generate some strategies from critical issues. Okay, so I think the way to make this most relevant is to do critical issues with a 3-year goal that's present for me right now, and just to do this together in real time. All right, so if we have we'll start actually with a 3-year goal. So here I am, and here's the target. So what exactly is the target? So I have a few goals. I just bought a property. It's 16 acres, and I want to build a house. I want to develop that land in a way that I probably want to put about 1.5 to $2 million into the property. And what that might give me is some residencies in order to have people be able to study with me in person and to stay on the land and use the land as a healing center. I want irrigation. I also want to have a personal home out there in 3 years. Another goal I have is my child is now 12, so she'll be 15, is to reinvent schooling for her, and so that she can, basically train with the best people that she wants to train. She wants to be an influencer. And so you can see around this goal, like it's not that concrete yet, but there's definitely something with helping her be, an influencer / an entrepreneur. And I would even say that, by the time she's 15 years old, for her to be generating a self-sustaining income, something like that, for a 15-year-old. Not sure what that number is exactly, but like on the way to being able to like live independently, and I would say by the end of a 15th year, probably going more into like 16, 17 for that goal. But like, what will she need to be doing to be set up for that? Those are my 2 big goals. My third goal is around personal health, is just to be, thriving in particular in my body. I would say mind and spirit are like, those are good check boxes for me. Like I feel really good in mind and spirit. My body still has like a lot of, I have inflammation in a few joints. So I want to be free of joint pain, or having like full strength and bilateral flexibility and strength, full strength bilaterally. That's really what I want. And right now I don't have that. My right side's quite a bit stronger than my left side. So this is really what those are my 3 targets. So if I hit my target here, looks like I'm levitating. If I hit my target here, then these 3 things will have occurred. Okay. So you can tell they're both, they're both personal and professional. These are my 3 goals. So if I take these goals and now I run a SWOT on it, right? So I'm going to say strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I'll do it the same way we did last time. Okay, so in order for this property and whatnot to happen, it's basically a revenue number and it's a bit of planning. So I have a strength in that my husband knows how to build things. He's a good designer builder. So that's helpful. He also knows a ton of contractors that can help. I have a strength in that my business makes money. So yogahealer can increase revenue, particularly by developing marketing and fulfillment systems. These are probably the 2 places that will drive revenue the most, especially on like kind of like click to buy type sales as opposed to the larger courses. But another weakness right now is actually master review, which we're improving so that we can actually have it more competitive with our yoga health coaching, with our Wellness Pro brand, with like a 2-year solid curriculum for the same price point. So that's right now, it's a weakness that we're turning into a strength. We have a strength in developing curriculum and courses. And all of that should help with the money in order to get to that. Okay, reinventing schooling. Let's look at that one. And I'm going to do this fast because I want you just to get going on it. As opposed to like making this a harder exercise. I find with these exercises, you do them, and then what happens is later that day, you're like, oh, I need to add this on there. Okay, I need to add this stuff on there in order to move this part through faster. So what we have next is this whole thing around reinventing schooling, influencer, entrepreneur. I would say my weakness is time. So Kate's time. We would definitely need to take this into account. Like if I'm gonna help drive that revenue, then my guess is my time will be somewhat wrapped up in work. I have a strength in terms of I am pretty tapped into influencer marketing, or I have resources that are. So I would say influencer marketing. We also have a strength. We have capital. So I have money that I can invest, which makes it, that just is always easier when you can hire someone. But I didn't always have capital, believe me. So you can always find capital, and if capital is a weakness, just put it under weakness there. Another weakness I would say is Indy's focus. She can really get really distracted, so that might be a weakness. A strength would definitely be she has strong desire. So I'll just say Indy's desire, because we might be able to marry those 2 things later. Okay, so thriving in body, full strength bilateral training. A strength is that I do have a lot of knowledge on yoga therapeutics, and I think the weakness here is probably my time. Okay, opportunities. There's huge opportunities in influencer marketing. There's, I think, huge opportunities in developing residency programs. There's opportunities in evolving the way that building and contractor and it's called subcontracting and building. Subcontracting is happening. Like there's a you used to basically like hire someone to build your house or hire a builder group to build your house, and then they do a lot of the work. But now what we're finding is it's a lot of subcontracting, so you really need good project management. So actually I could put project management. We're really good at hiring project managers now at Yoga Healer. For a long time, that would have shown up over here. And there's two other things I like to add to the SWOT, and one is accomplishments. I'll write that out because we haven't seen it yet. And the other is lessons learned. So one of the lessons that I learned along the way is that if I was going to scale an idea, I needed really good project managers. One of our recent accomplishments is project management being done well. So often things will move from A&L over to S, over to a strength. So a weakness will move into a lesson learned, and a lesson learned will move into an accomplishment, and accomplishment will move into a strength. So that is a very natural way, and we'll work more on this in later iterations of how do you identify weaknesses, what actions do you need to take so that those weaknesses become lessons learned, and then how do you turn lessons learned into an accomplishment, and those two things really go together, and then it starts to show up on your strength side. All right, so back to project management can help with one. It can also maybe help a little bit with two. If I have someone else project managing in Indy's influencer project, I might pay someone to do that with that capital that I have. See, now what happens is I start to get into ideation, and that's where we're on the road to some strategy. Okay, thriving in body, full strength, bilateral. I also have a strength in my healer network. I know a lot of healers, so there's a good chance that I could probably have other people help me with my body. That would not be a bad idea. Okay, so what are some big threats? We have COVID as a threat to sort of everything, or, just like basically pandemics where the economy changes and things shut down. There's a huge opportunity in the marketplace for online teams, online businesses, online contractors. There's a lot of skills available right now. I'm very aware of. And there's also an increase in people doing coaching and mentoring and just online education. All this stuff online. So coaching and mentoring online. So it's an increase in the marketplace with coaching and mentoring, but it's also an increase of this online. I'm just going to say online education for adults in terms of personal growth. Huge. It's my market sector, always has been, and that is also growing. So that's definitely an opportunity. There's threats. Hacking, like security and hacking with online companies that, our intellectual property can get hacked. Other big threats, I'm not really seeing other, and the property is drought for sure with climate change. This is something that, even as I write it down, I'm like, oh yeah, weaknesses I don't necessarily know about land management. And now I have 16 acres. There's most likely going to be some sort of drought. And I do have water rights. So I also don't know much about water rights and how to kind of efficiently move electricity and water through this property. Okay, so that took a few minutes. You can tell I've done this before. My mind is really trained to find the strategic, the critical issues that will give rise to strategic problem solving pretty quickly. So the reason this is easy for me is I've iterated this, roughly 3-4 times a year minimum for at least the last 4 or 5. SWATs I've probably been doing for 6 years. Doing them as strategic problem solving, I've only been doing for about, maybe since 2017. But doing that every time a big problem comes up, I'll use this. And then I'll also use this for quarterly or trimester-based planning for my company and for my family. Okay. So now really what we have is like a whole bunch of stuff on these 3 targets. And I didn't separate them. You could separate them all out. I do find, because I'm the one living my life, that there's naturally a lot of overlap. So now at this point, what I'm trying to do is find, like, what are the things that are really in the way, right? And so the biggest questions is, like, for me, might be, how do we'll take the one with Indy. How do I guide Indy's journey into influencer entrepreneurship in the next 3 years, given that I don't have much time? I'm not like I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I am a stay-at-home mom because I work from home. That's kind of our joke. I don't have too much time. And it's also not my skill set. And this is where, once you start to really think about it, one of my weakness is I don't want to be the mentor for my own child. So I'm just going to write, not mentor my own kid. Like, it'd probably be much easier for me to mentor someone else's kid. I also find I do better with young adults through people that are through their like pitta time of life. So I do really well from like about the 20 years old to about the 75-year-old age category. And that's a pretty huge range, right? That's a 55-year span. That's where my strengths are. My weaknesses are not in my strength is not in teenagers. So I don't have much time, and she needs another mentor. And that's going a little bit into problem solving. Someone else would need to project manage that. And that's where I'm already getting a little bit into solutions right there. So what else in terms of how would we get Indy into influencer entrepreneurship, given that I don't have much time, we need a project manager? That's actually probably a good enough start for right now. And I don't know. Also, one of my weaknesses in this is I don't know who does teen influencer stuff. I don't know who she should be following for that. And I'll just say, given that I don't know, same thing, teen influencer. I don't know who she should be following in there that's like in line with our ethics. Because we obviously wouldn't want her to follow someone that wasn't in line with our family values or family ethos. All right. So this is a pretty good question. In this sentence stem, how do I do this given that? And that's really what we want to highlight in here is, how do I do this given that this is the nature of reality? So what I'm doing there is I'm taking a goal and I'm saying, okay, of that goal, I'm going to just take the weaknesses here. And the weaknesses here are my time. I'm not mentoring a kid. Indy's not necessarily that focused, and we don't know influencer marketing so well. But given that I do know how to hire project managers, and I am super networked. I'm super tapped into influencer marketing for my company, and my kid has a strong desire. So we might want to capture that over here too. How do I guide Indy's journey? The desire's in here. She wants to do it. If she didn't want to do it, believe me, I wouldn't try to create a teenage influencer. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, like, she could be a rocket scientist instead of a teenage influencer and blah, blah, blah. Okay. How do I guide, given that I have a strength in, I have a network, and I have some know-how in influencer marketing. I've been a bit in influencer marketing for about a decade. I'd say the first 5 years of that, I didn't really realize that's what I was doing, but It is what I was doing. Now that's pretty rounded out. We just don't have the project manager. Oh yeah, need a project manager. And that's also a strength, is that I know I need I know I would need someone else, whether it was a project manager or a mentor, for her in that. So at this point, I can more or less build this into a strategy, and critical issues become strategies pretty quickly. So now what's my strategy is I'm taking a strength. I'm going to highlight strength in red, that I have a network. Oops, this is too obnoxious. I'm going to highlight that I have a network, a know-how in influencer marketing, and I know quite a bit about project management. So my strategy here for Indy's journey into entrepreneurship might be that I'm going to, and now is where I'm going to choose a key action verb. And so key action verbs, I have a list of them in here. I was going to use leverage here. I'm going to write down the action verbs. Leverage is a good one. Maximize is another good one. Like, how do I maximize my influencer network and project management skills or project management team skills to guide Indy's 3-year journey into influencer entrepreneurship? That's now a strategy, because see how all I'm doing is guiding the overall thing. I'm not actually spending time with my kid learning influencer marketing. Okay, so that these verbs are leverage, maximize. I'm looking in the book, page 130. Alchemize, that was one I came up with because I thought it was a little bit more. It's a little bit more Ayurvedic. Ayurveda has a huge history in alchemy. How do I engage? How do I gather? These are more the feminine words. The more masculine words are leverage, maximize. Up level is another, or magnify. And this just helps then basically take the question and put it into a statement. So the strategy then is I leverage my network and influencer know-how and project management. I'm not going to say my project management skills, and a project manager / mentor to guide Indy's 3-year journey into influencer marketing. So we took, again, just a quick review, like when you do this right, it's like magic. You're like, that would work. Like at the end of the day, when you're like, when you get it, what you want to be saying is like, then we'd have a shot. Then we'd have a shot because this is no longer reliant on my time, right? And that's the biggest weakness right here is like, I don't have time to do this for my kid, with my kid, and I'm not the best person to do it with her. Like it just wouldn't work. But now we have a strategy, and we took some weaknesses, we took some strengths, we married them together, and then it does truly become a strategy with a little bit of oomph. It really becomes what I call a bionic strategy, because it's combining two things. So I leverage my network and influencer know-how and a project manager or mentor to guide Indy's 3 to 5 year journey into influencer marketing. Sounds like it would work to me, right? It's a great place to then start. So then what it naturally does is it naturally gives rise to next actions. So what are my next actions in order to make this happen? Well, it probably has to do with doing some research and finding out who good teen influencers are, finding a project manager or mentor, someone who's mentoring teens that want to do this into fulfillment. So those are a few little things that I could do then in the next quarters, like see if I could find a course for her to take, a project mentor or mentor, a course with another teen influencer, etc. So that's how you identify your critical issues. And the critical issues are when you write out a how might I, how do I kind of statement. And you're at that point, Tyler says there should be smoke coming out your ear. He's my mentor in this. And I find, like, I did this without smoke coming out of my ears. I think that to some degree comes from a lot of practice. It also comes with, like, this isn't that hard of a problem necessarily for me to solve. We'll see if it works. Right. But in general, I find, like, the more practice you have on this, the better. If this doesn't come to you right away, just listen to this again and again and keep looking for, like, what are the weaknesses that are really going to keep me from this goal? What could keep me from this? And when you get really curious about what could keep you from this, then, you're on the path of reality, and that'll help you create a much better strategy. If you're Pollyannish, or you're just in, like, this sort of, like, law of attraction, and there's nothing wrong, I'm not saying there's something wrong with law of attraction thinking. It's just get a better strategy, because strategy allows you to take action, and that is actually propelling attraction towards you. Is when you move towards your goal gets more clear, and it can move towards you. Okay. So we have number 2 here checked off, and now we would do the same thing for, let's take number 1. So there's a big chunk of capital here. That's right. Let's highlight that. Irrigation, residency, property, home. And this vision isn't that solidified right yet. Like, if I really was curious, like, how many residencies? Like, what's the vision with that? Is it to make money? Is it a nonprofit center? Is it part of yogahealer? How is that thing funded? What does that all look like? What's my home like, etc. So how much of this money is in loan versus how much of this money is in what I'm just earning and putting into the business putting into this property in real time. There's a lot of good questions in there. So as I move into that one, we've got all this stuff in here. There's I'd say there's a weakness in the plan for residency and how they work. I don't understand the business model for that, and then revenue projections. That might be helpful to do if I really wanted to do this for income. So if I go into the critical issues for this, we're going to create a very similar thing. So it's how might I invest $2 million in developing this property, given that I'm not quite sure what I want. And I'm not quite sure what my husband wants, what I want, what yogahealer wants, and what my husband wants. And what I want to point out here is I'm not hiding this fact. I'm not glossing over it. I'm not hiding it. I'm actually highlighting it. Like, we don't really know what we want, but we know we want to develop this property in 3 years. We want it to be, like, well underway. So given that, and also given that, we'll put some of the strengths here. My husband is great at design and build, and we have a very strong contractor network. In this valley, we've lived in this valley, and he's worked in construction for 25 years. He's a glazier. So we have a contractor network that we've developed over 25 years. That's obviously a long time. And now I'm just, again, going back to these strengths and weaknesses here. Project management skills, capital, those are pluses on this. I'll include those. PM skills. A lot of this is also tied up in developing additional revenue. So I would say, given that I can invest in revenue growth, and this was actually, if I go back to the SWOT, a lesson learned over time for me was actually to reinvest the money in the company, in the Yoga Healer, in revenue growth, and to grow the next level of revenue. I wasn't doing that for a long time. It was actually became a weakness. I had a strength in being able to make money. I had a weakness in knowing how to reinvest it in the company so that it could continue to grow, which included investing in people that had skills that my team didn't have yet, and bringing in new team or bringing in new vendors to do things for us. So reinvesting in Yoga Healer to drive revenue, next, sorry about my handwriting, of revenue growth. Hopefully it's good enough for you to get the idea of. Okay, so invest in revenue growth. So now I have a bit of a strategy. I could look at words like maximize here. So how might I do this? Is that I maximize, and now I'm just trying to take all my critical issues here. I maximize our contractor network. To clarify the vision, because that's really what's missing, is that, like, we're not quite sure what we want, right? Like, that's honestly, if you don't know what you want, don't start doing anything till it's clear. To clarify the vision with my family for the property. So that might be that we get our friends that do excavation out there, that do irrigation out there, that do, tiny houses or small homes, that understand wetlands and this river ecosystem that we bought, and understand drought and drought protection, fire and fire protection, all those things. So I'm going to really tap into contractor network to do that. I'm also going to maximize, my husband he's a bit of a design build visionary. So maximize Winston's design build visionary. And I also need to maximize, and I don't have this here. So what happens is, as you start doing this, you start to remember more things. I actually have really good research skills, because of, just going to a really good undergraduate college where you had to develop really good research skills. So I'm going to also maximize my research skills to understand more about residency programs and the business model for that. So I'm basically saying the same exact thing up there, but now I'm just putting it in a life positive statement. How do I maximize the contractor network? And also I need to maximize my ability to invest in revenue for the company's growth. Because if I invest in that revenue and that grows, that's my fastest way to making more money in order to develop this next level of project. Okay, does this even make any sense? Now I reread it. I maximize my contractor network to clarify the vision with my family. I maximize our contractor network to clarify the vision with my family for the property. We maximize Winston's design build visionary skills. We maximize my research skills in residency, and apply that to residency programs and the business model. And I maximize my ability to invest in Yoga Healer's revenue growth to develop, we're calling it Greenville because that's the location that it's in, to develop Greenville with $2 million in capital. So I just want to point out here, like, what's so cool about this strategy that I just created, at least cool for me, and is that it actually becomes actionable even though we don't have the clear vision of it. Sometimes in the past, when I didn't have a clear vision, I wouldn't make a strategy out of it because I'm like, I don't really know what it is. But the strategy takes into account that we need to clarify the vision. I know we want to develop this property. I know we want it to be a super cool place for us to hang out in 3 years. And I think I want it to be a place for people that are really interested in high-level work with me to come and spend a month or two, be at the river, be in an intact ecosystem where there's food to harvest that is from the native plants, learn more even about the invasive weeds, like the whole experience. Like I have this feeling about that, but my vision's not clear. It's not a problem because now I actually have the beginning of a good strategy. And now what are some of my actions? Well, the actions get pretty clear for phase one, right? Which might be the next, I like to look at seasons or quarters, 4 seasons a year, 4 quarters a year, or 3 seasons a year, 3 trimesters a year. Either of those really work great. And we'll say that either one of those are phase one. What I know I need to do is talk to a bunch of contractors, right? And I know I need to do a bunch of research. And I know I need to get Winston starting to sketch some stuff out on paper. So there's research, there's sketching, and there's meeting with the contractors. All right, so that's it for now. I'm not going to go through the personal health one because I think you've got enough to really understand how to start to get from the SWOT into what are the critical issues, into these action verbs are so important because it's the action verbs that turn the problem. How the heck am I going to do this given all the stuff I don't know how to do, or that I have no capital, or I have none of this? And then to actually marry those things together to build strategy. The only way you get good at this is through practice, is through repetition, is through quarterly iterations. Don't worry about getting it wrong as opposed to just getting enough of it right to take the right actions that'll at least give you more information to move the needle, or to move the ball down the field, or to move you more in alignment with your goal. All right, that's critical issues.